Jeff. Good morning, Jeff. I see Brad, sort of, at least I see his name. Dee Dee and Karen. Hi, Hannah Gar. How are you, Hannah?
Hi, I'm good.
Okay, what time do you have to get up to start functioning on Saturday morning?
8:30.
Oh, okay. Straight line to the screen, right? Okay, that's not bad. And okay.
Move over a little bit.
I'm going to use my roller anyway.
Oh.
Okay, more and more people. Someone's on Marvin's iPad. That varies from week to week. Hi, Donna. Hi. Let's see. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that, Howard, is that a new thing? 1, 2, 3, 4? Oh, maybe. Anyway, Natalie has now joined us. That's fun. But okay, Dee Dee. We're going to get started. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher tishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei
Torah. Oh, Mara, Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov. Good to see you. And tomorrow we were talking about people who have additional Torah study after this one. Do you still have additional Torah study after this one?
You're muted.
Okay.
What do you mean after?
Do you go to another class Saturday?
No, this is it.
Oh, boy. So either we produce or not. That's pressure. Okay. Let's do calendar. First of all, hi. Got to relax and just look at the faces and say hi. And it's really
Morning.
it's nice. Oh, okay. I see. Mona's back there, kind of like, yeah. Okay. Hi, Mona. Jim, what do we have?
Tonight we have a discussion at 7:30 of Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close. This is a movie I've been fond of. And for some reason, I avoided scheduling it, and I took a look at it again, and it's just terrific. It's based on the book by Jonathan Safran Foer, who also wrote Everything Will Be Explained, or sorry if I'm not getting that title. We saw this film a couple of years ago. It's a similar film.
Everything's illuminated.
Everything is illuminated, right. And this one is about a young boy who's on the spectrum, who goes on a treasure hunt throughout New York City in search of a connection to his father, whom he recently lost. The father's played by Tom Hanks, and the mother is Sandra Bullock. It's exceptionally well done, directed by Stephen Daldry, a great British director. Very sensitive. You'll need a couple of Kleenexes by the end, but it's so uplifting. It's a great story, beautifully told, and it's a family film. And share it, even if you don't come to the discussion. It's really worth seeing.
Yeah, reason I saw it again, you'd seen it previously, we saw it again this week. I don't know, I don't want to disagree with you. I didn't get past one Kleenex. I mean, got one, but I didn't get to the second Kleenex, but it was still
okay.
Okay. It was the person who played the little kid.
Yeah.
Totally amazing. Just totally. Whatever happened to him, do you know?
He's in college now, I think. There's no record after 2016 when he was 19 years old. So quite a head on his shoulders, but a wonderful performance among the child performances that we have in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Great.
And John Foer has this drive to find origins, to find roots, to find out who he is and where he came from. And I think to a certain extent, that's the power of the film too, because it really talks to all of us.
Yeah.
It talks to all of us. I'm not going to go over it again.
No, one more point about him though. With Nathan Englander, he wrote a book called The New American Haggadah. Englander is the guy who wrote What We Talk About When We Talk About Anne Frank. And right. I reviewed the Haggadah briefly. It's certainly worth a look. It's graphically pleasing. And it's just one more take on the Passover story with relevance to us today.
Okay, we're going to thank you. That's 7:30 tonight.
Yeah.
And it's a winner. Just to mention in terms of calendar, a number of us here are very much aware of the fact that April 10th, April 11th, the Board of Governors of the Hebrew College is meeting to make a momentous decision about the future of the Hebrew Union College.
Wow.
I would say that those of you who have access to like the Jewish Telegraphic Agency or any other Jewish news source, check things out Monday evening, because I have no clue, and I certainly have positions. I'm not going to talk about it here, but it is an enormously historic, significant decision. So please be aware, Monday evening, it should be all finished, and check your news sources. And April 13th, we have current events, and I expect that I'll have a few things to say about the decision on this Wednesday at noon, our current events program. We all look forward to it. It's lovely, it's wonderful. And there's plenty of stuff, but Hebrew College will now be near the top of the list. April 11th, before the 13th, I don't see Cindy, but I do know that the Women's Seder, April 11th, is taking place. The women of Wilshire, and please just be aware of it, and it's very important. It's going to be great also. It'll be excellent. So the 11th is the Seder. The 13th is current events. The 15th is first Seder, just so that we have all of that lined up properly. And lest there be any question, oh, you doubting people, of course we will meet next Saturday morning for Chevra Torah. I mean, those of us who studied on the sidewalk when the building was abandoned because of threatened bombs, Chevra Torah met on the sidewalk. We never stop, okay? So we will certainly be meeting next Saturday morning, regular time, regular place, Chevra Torah. There is a question, and I do not have an answer. I don't know if Hannah has an answer at this point. I have asked that we have from 10 to 10:30 an extremely brief Yontif service, first morning Pesach, and that we could do it on the same Zoom link. And those who want, I never press praying, God forbid, I should tell you, you should pray. But I am attempting to set up a very short, and it's painful to say without a sermon, but a little half hour, just to touch Passover on the first morning of Passover. So please watch the announcements. I have made an official request. I don't have an official answer to what will happen Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And then to mention one small jump ahead, Saturday, April 23rd is the Yizkor, the closing service, the memorial service, all that goes on. So Saturday, April 23rd will be the Yizkor service. I would like to pause right now because I wanted to say hello to Roy Logan. I wanted to say hello, just to wave hello, not to put you on the spot, just to say hello and see later. Donna, yeah, but I'm looking at, I just want to pick up if there is anyone else who is relatively new. No, I guess, I think
all
that
Apple advisors are still busy.
I'm sorry?
No.
Okay. All right. So there we are. We're good. And we're okay.
You want to hear what Carrie had to say?
I'm sorry?
You want to hear what Carrie had to say?
What does Carrie have to say?
I was going to when you go around and ask everybody if they have any news, I was going to share that I'm converting on Monday.
Yes, you see how cautious I was, Carrie. I do not mention that.
I know you don't.
That's yours.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
And we are thrilled. I actually was a little bit more thrilled at the beginning. I became less thrilled later on. Carrie honored me by asking me to be part of the Beit Din. And I just had the vision of me flying off to Hawaii, the Beit Din. And then she carefully said to me, "No, Rabbi, Zoom." So I am not going to Hawaii, but
not today, at least.
Okay.
They use the ocean as the mikveh here.
They do. That's what's going to be done, the mikveh, the ocean?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's certainly running water. That's great. Carrie, we're thrilled for you. By the way, are you aware, Carrie, that one of the other rabbis on the Beit Din, Nolan,
Yes.
has just gotten a new job?
Yes.
So not only do you have a fine rabbi in Nolan who's going to be part of the Beit Din, but you have the new rabbi of Valley Beth Shalom.
I know.
Part of the mikveh, the Beit Din. So, you know, all of a sudden you have been catapulted up into the, oh, he was a witness for your Beit Din. Wow. And then the Noch Schlepper, I'll have to teach you what Noch Schlepper is. But the Noch Schlepper is Stanley Davids. I mean, he's there, he's one. But Nolan, new rabbi of Valley Beth Shalom. There are a lot of changes going on in the rabbinate in Los Angeles. So Valley Beth Shalom, Rabbi Feinstein is stepping aside, sort of. I'm not quite sure what that means. It's sort of stepping aside. And the senior rabbi at Sinai is stepping aside. So it's like, oh, here we go. Okay.
For the guard.
Yeah, seriously changing of the guard. So
Rabbi?
Okay, Susie?
I just wanted to ask Ray and Carrie, where do you live and how did you find us?
Yeah. We live on Oahu.
Yeah, we're in Kailua. It's 10 miles outside of Honolulu.
Okay.
And there's one temple here. They don't have Saturday morning. It's Reform. They were meeting virtually. So there weren't a lot of opportunities here for Jewish education. So we're both from the LA area. So I started looking around and at Wilshire and Stephen Wise and VBS, and kind of just stumbled along upon this group.
And right before we found you, we found Judy Fryer
from Valley Beth Shalom.
And she caused an inspired interest in Torah study.
She did a Torah study Saturday morning, but she retired.
She was a teacher there.
So.
Actually, what Ray and Carrie failed to mention, and I say this with no hint of they went on the internet and looked for the most successful, powerful, most penetrating, beautiful Torah study group, and they found us. So there is that. Okay.
And then what we're doing next week is we are hosting a Passover Seder here at our house for 14 of our new temple members. We don't know any of them. And the rabbi is joining us because she's a temporary rabbi here. She lives in Virginia. And then they're going to do it on Zoom. So wow. if I thought, as a child, I was nervous sitting at my grandparents' house having to read the Haggadah. I mean, the whole world is going to see this, and this is going to be crazy.
The only thing to remember is not only is the whole world going to see it, but later, if you really make a serious mistake, it's on tape and people will go back and find it. So don't be nervous.
So
Okay.
Carrie is really hitting the ground running here. Conversion on Monday, it's Seder on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, Ray said, I need more coffee. You said Beit Din, and I heard debate team. Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. Today is Shabbat Hagadol. And that is a great time, Shabbat Hagadol. And you know that last week's Sedra and this week's Sedra usually are read together. They're two very, very short Sedras. And Tazria and Metzora generally are read together, except this is a leap year. This is a leap year, so that Tazria was last week, Metzora is this week. And it is a very, very, very short reading. Today being Shabbat Hagadol, I would like, with your permission, and Effie, I hope you'll tolerate it, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to go to the Haftarah. I want to look at Malachi because as it happens, there is a close connection between Malachi and Ezra and Nehemiah. And one of the world's great scholars on Ezra happens to be sitting in on the class right now. So we're going to have a chance to take advantage of that. I'm going to look in the Plout, page 1459, in the Plout, 1459. And it is a marvelous, marvelous, marvelous text. What I know about Malachi, which isn't a lot, you'll notice that it says the Haftarah for Shabbat Hagadol. What I know about Malachi is that he's apparently dated around 520-ish BCE. And can you help me set that date? If I say 520 BCE, what does that tell you? Where does that fit inside the evolution of Jewish history? 520 BCE. As I turn the fan on, because in fact, it's getting warm.
No.
Okay.
Rabbi, do you have a page for the women's Torah study?
No, I do not. No, I do not. That's why I did not. I'm sorry I did not announce it, but it's not there. The Haftarah in this case is only in the Plout. So does anyone have a thought about 520 BCE? 520. Penina? You're muted.
Was that the exile? The Babylonian exile?
Okay, well, the other end, the 586 BCE, approximately, is the destruction of the first temple.
Right.
Okay, by 420, they are back. 420, I misspoke. By 420, they are back. I have a date for the dedication of the second temple. Boy, excuse me, I have really messed up the dates.
Would you like me to jump in?
Okay, let me go back a bit, okay? 586, destruction of the temple. 516, let's go back. 516, forget everything I said and, whatever. See, it's on tape and it's permanent. That's the problem. 516, tomorrow, that's a date I have for the dedication of the second temple. Is that reasonable?
Yes, it's very precise, and yes, and also 520 is a good date because that's when they start to build the temple, and they lay the foundation 520 and they finish 516.
Okay, so it's good.
Dedicated.
So 586, the destruction. 520, they're back, or significant numbers are back in Judea. they begin the building of the second temple.
Yeah, hold on a second.
And 516 finish. What's interesting is this is not the second temple we know about. The temple that we have, the wall, boy, I'm going to dangle a preposition. The temple of which, there it is, the temple of which the western wall is still standing is maybe the fourth or fifth temple. And we don't usually hold on to that. We call it the second temple wall. That's not historically accurate. There were a number of occasions in which the temple was, I would suspect that the one that was built in 516 was quite rudimentary, was not fancy at all. And it got fancier and fancier until we got to Herod and the temple as we know it, that was then destroyed by the Romans, the destruction. But when we say the destruction of the second temple in 70 CE, that is historically not correct. Okay, so at the time of Malachi, the people are involved in rebuilding the temple. And I think I have the date straight, 586, 516, 520, and then 516. I'm sorry for the confusion because I actually put the confusion in my notes. Now, Malachi, Steve, you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, I thought that the kotel wasn't actually a wall of the temple itself, but that the temple was on the what is now the Temple Mount, and this was not actually part of the building.
It's a restraining wall. It's a restraining wall, not a wall of the building. But what Herod did was to build this other temple, to build it up, to widen the plaza, to make it bigger. And then there was a wall as a retaining wall for the plaza on which the temple was built. The western wall is the western wall of that retaining wall, not of the temple. I mean, I know all these things. It's really, I mean, I could even tell you that I went into the Mosque of Omar, and they have there in the mosque a place where you can actually put your hand in and touch the imprint of the hoof of El-Kabir, Muhammad's horse, from which he went up to heaven. And that was when Shoshana, our middle child, was very, very, very interested, and she wanted to see this purported hoof print, stuck her face toward the hoof print, and a guy bent down next to her with a cigarette in his mouth and burned her.
Oh, no.
So I have all these memories of these places, all very constructive. Okay, so now Malachi is apparently not a person's name. Isaiah is a person's name. Stanley, but Malachi probably means my messenger. Malach in Hebrew can be a messenger, can be an angel, but Malachi could be my messenger. So we don't know who this person is. We don't know who the prophet Malachi is. We know that he was somehow related to the time frame of Ezra and Nehemiah and the building of temple number 2. And Tamara, I know I didn't clear this with you, but can you just tell us, we know Ezra, very important, and if he existed, and Nehemiah. What was the relationship between Ezra and Nehemiah and this anonymous Malachi?
Well, we don't know because we don't know who this person is, and we don't know if he was at the time of Ezra or at the time of Nehemiah, which is considerably later. So Ezra would be 458, BCE, and Nehemiah and Nehemiah will be 444 BCE, so it's considerably later. But we know the temple is standing, and what we see in Malachi is some of the same controversies that we find in the literature about Ezra and Nehemiah, but we don't really know.
Okay, so if you will, what we're going to look at right here in Malachi, in fact, reflects the problems that attended the return to Judea and the building of the temple, the trying to reestablish the Jewish Commonwealth again. So that's why this is interesting. But we're going to get to, so what's the connection with Passover? We're going to get to that. It's a very strong connection. I would like to look at verses, chapter 4, verses, chapter 3, excuse me. I'm having a real problem here today because I can't see. 13 to 24. Verses 13 to 24. My book in Plout, I have 1460. Would someone like to read 13 through 24? Or at least read part of it. We'll ask somebody to read something else. Would someone like to read, please? Good. Another volunteer. Don't fight. Do we have a volunteer? We don't have a volunteer yet. Donna, thank you. Thank you. That's how you got to be president of university, right? You stepped forward. Okay, good.
Right.
Okay.
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay.
Well, 1460, if I can see right here, verse 13.
Okay. Your words have been harsh against me, says the Eternal, yet you say, what have we said to one another against you? You have said, it's useless to serve God. What gain is there in observing God's service or in walking with mourner's attire before the God of heaven's hosts? We account the arrogant happy. The evildoers are the ones who live on. They even try God and get away with it.
Go ahead, please. Do a bit more.
Then those who revere the Eternal talk to each other. The Eternal listened and took note of it, and a scroll of remembrance was written before God concerning those who revered and valued God's name. On the day that I am preparing, says the God of heaven's hosts, they shall be to me my most precious possession. I will be tender to them as parents are tender toward their children who serve them.
Okay, we're going to stop right here. I love, you know this, I love to look at the Hebrew and see how it relates to the English if it does. And I just caught this in verse 17 where it says, I'll be tender to them, I'll show them, compassion. And then the Hebrew says, Kasher Yachmol Ish al Beno Ha'ovedoto. And the Hebrew says, as a man shows tenderness toward his son who serves him. And you do notice that the English says, I will be tender to them as parents are tender toward their children who serve them. I just, I like to pick up on things. The English upgraded the Hebrew, which only has been around for 2,500 years. And thank God we have the English that is politically correct. Parents are tender. And the Hebrew is interesting. Al benoha ovedoto. As parents are tender, as a father is tender toward his child, ha'oved ito.
I love it.
Who serves him. Okay? So what we really want out of our children is that they should serve us. I'm not telling my kids about this. Okay. And I would like, Donna, one more verse, please.
You shall turn back and see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between one who serves God and one who does not serve.
Remember what Tamara said? Now we're talking about the issues of the day. Issues of the day. Verse 19 and following. Who'd like to read, please? We have a reader.
Lynn.
Okay,
Lynn.
I have Lynn. Yes, Lynn is always up there with the reading. Yes, thank you. Great.
For behold, the day is coming, burning like an oven. Those who were so proud, who did so much evil, shall be stubble. The day that comes will burn them up, leaving them neither root nor branch, says the God of heaven's hosts. But for you who revere my name, a son of righteousness shall rise with healing on its wings. You shall break out and gambol like calves, like stall-fed calves. You shall trample the wicked, for they shall be ashes under your feet on the day that I am making, says the God of heaven's hosts. Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant, the statutes and ordinances I commanded him at Horeb for all Israel.
Now here is the big verse. Go ahead, please. 2 verses.
Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Eternal, to turn the hearts of parents to their children and the hearts of children to their parents, lest I come and smite the land with destruction.
Okay. Now
That's so beautiful.
do you feel the Passover connection? Why? Okay. Now, in terms of Shabbat Hagadol, the great Sabbath, if you would look, please, in verse 23, Hine anochi sholech lechem et Eliyahu hanavi, behold, I am sending to you Elijah the prophet, lifnei bo yom Adonai, before the day of the eternal comes. What kind of a day? Gadol and Norah. Gadol, great, and Norah, awesome or frightening or whatever. So this is the Shabbat in which we read that Elijah is coming, okay, to before the end time, before the time of destruction, a great and awesome time. And the word Gadol is here. So the day on which we read the passage, the Haftarah with Gadol in it, is called Shabbat HaGadol, the great Sabbath. Okay? It's not, I don't want to say this like, it's not because this Sabbath is greater than all the other greater Sabbaths. It's great because in the text we read for the Haftarah, we read Gadol, great. I want to point out before I call Lady Jones, look, if you will, at the last lines on the page, which happen to be very similar to verse 23. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the eternal. Why is that there? That seems to be either a repetition or a redundancy. 23, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet. And then at the bottom, unnumbered is behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet. What's going on here?
Wow.
Okay. Well, I like a wow. A wow is a good thing. I see something I hadn't seen before. What's going on here?
I don't know. I just was watching the space shuttle go up, and I talked about Elijah on the post. I said, I wonder how Elijah felt when he went up in the fiery chariot. I said that this morning when this rocket went up, and then now you're talking about Elijah. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I do amazing things as long as I'm with this group. As long as I am with this group, it's like nothing without it. Folks. Oh, okay, Mara, please.
Isn't this what we discussed when we studied with you the minor prophets, where it intentionally ends with something positive, even though it's actually not part of the portion?
Somebody was actually listening? Whoa! Yes, thank you, Mara. You have made my day. When we do a Haftarah reading like this, the rabbis didn't want to end with and I will smite the land with destruction. The rabbis felt that the promise of having the land smitten by destruction is not an upbeat way to end the Haftarah. So they go back a verse, pick up something which is a little bit better, and repeat it. Okay? So it's the way. So if you go to a shul for a Saturday morning, and they're doing the Haftarah, they will indeed read, behold, I will send you. Then they'll read, to turn the hearts of parents to children, and then they will read, behold, I will send you. Okay? It's a thing. No matter how harsh you may think the rabbis were at certain times, they wanted to leave people smiling when the Haftarah ended. And so we have this. Now, I love the juxtaposition of the end of verse 23 and the beginning of verse 24. Do you feel that juxtaposition? What is it going to take to make verse 24 happen? What's it going to take? At the end of verse 23. What's it going to take?
Reconciliation.
Yeah, but it's not just reconciliation. In order to turn the hearts of the parents to their children, it's going to take Elijah coming.
An apocalypse.
It is going to take Elijah to come to reconcile parents and children. And Natalie, if you want to say something to Donna right now on this topic, you have your hand up? You had your hand up? No? Okay. There was a hand. Okay, Penina.
I thought that the coming of the Messiah is supposed to come when there is going to be peace on earth, that a nation isn't going to draw their swords against another nation. Lo yisa goel gol cherev. And that's supposed to be when Elijah is going to come, when it's going to be peace on earth all over. So it's up to us to bring the Messiah. It's up to us to make sure that there is going to be peace on earth. Otherwise, he won't come.
Okay, so this opens up a topic that I was actually ready for. Elijah enters the Haggadah from here, from Malachi. This is where Elijah steps forward and ends up in the Haggadah. That's another reason why I wanted to look at this today. How did Elijah get there? Malachi. He got there because Malachi is predicting that Elijah is going to come and start the process. Ray, you have your hand up.
Thank you, I do. I didn't mean to interrupt you mid-sentence. I had a little experience of this verse that I wanted to share when you're ready, but by all means, please get to the end of your thought.
No, but go ahead. You already did. I'm dead. So go ahead.
All right. Like so many things in the world, this verse is colored for me by the fact that I'm volunteering on a committee that is working on some union negotiations. And there is nothing like being on a committee in general and a labor committee in particular to make us cheek to jowl with the best and worst of human nature at all times. So that sharpens my encounter with this text. That qualification said, I am struck by the utility of God's designating Eliyahu as somebody to look out for. Eliyahu will, in this case, reconcile the sons and the fathers, parents with children, so that when I come, I not strike the whole land with utter destruction. And this strikes me as, again, a bit of a gloss. With apologies to Effie, I do see, for better or for worse, Torah as a substantially human enterprise. And I do see this as a careful diplomatic maneuver to try to keep united in the cause both the followers that want to revere an awesome and all-powerful God and not find reason or be asked to infer reason, to question God's omniscience, omnipotence, and perfection, and the factions that are aware that they look around and they don't see happening what they keep being told is supposed to be happening, and what do you do about those people? So if you're a labor union, you say, well, it may not be ratified in the contract, but don't worry, we have a special committee for that. And I submit, fellow Torah scholars, that Eliyahu is that committee. Eliyahu is the diplomatic MacGuffin to smooth over the crags and internal disagreement within the group of adherents that this text is looking to keep together at the negotiating table.
I want to refer now, it's on page 1459, when Malachi lists the crimes of the people and why he is unhappy. I'll be swift to witness. And when he says he's pointing these things out, these are the things that are occurring. There are sorcerers, adulterers, those who swear falsely, and those who extort the wages of workers. Okay, we got the labor union reference right in here. So you should be happy.
Yofi.
Oppress the widows and orphans, who thrust away strangers. Here we're coming to Seder next Friday evening. This coming Friday evening. And people who don't care for strangers. People who don't worry about people who are not quite like them. And people who don't fear me. I haven't changed, God says. You have strayed. Now, if you can try to get the image of what's going on, the people are in Babylonia. They're crying by the waters of Babylon, okay? They want to get back home. Suddenly the gates are open, 50 years, whatever it is, they start coming back home. Hallelujah, the world is good. And Malachi is looking around and saying, you know what, folks? It wasn't all about just getting back home. It was reestablishing a commitment with God. And you are defaulting. You are doing rotten things. And Malachi says, unless you fix this, we are all in trouble. And then he comes back to where we were reading and says, Elijah is going to come, full stop. We got to stop here. Where do we meet Elijah before this? Where do we meet him? Where is this Elijah person? I'll take any volunteer. I see Donna waving passionately. Yes.
In our prayers, when we in our daily lives, the way we live, the way we try to be strong. Sometimes
Donna, we're going to wait. Let me call on people. Donna, please.
Well, he's kind of hanging out with Jezebel and Ahab and telling them not to be so bad and stuff like that. So
I hadn't pictured as hanging out. They go to a pub together, Jezebel and Elijah.
You know, you really got to cut this out, all this Baal worship. And
yeah. And they're sharing a brew together. Yeah. So Elijah arose up in the time of Ahab and Jezebel. And you know that I love the name Jezebel. I've said it before. Jezebel translates to island of four-letter word beginning with S. Jezebel, the term Jezebel means island of garbage or something like that. And then I hear songs, Jezebel, Jezebel, and I keep thinking of, oh, island of garbage. But in any event, Jezebel brought in the worship of Baal. Elijah said no. This is the Book of Kings. Elijah said no. And then they have this incredible competition between the prophets of Baal and the prophet and Elijah, the prophet of God. Donna, what happens there?
Well, they have the prophets of Baal are standing on one mountain and Elijah's standing on the other mountain. And they say, well, if your God is real, you're going to, set these offerings on fire, something along those lines. And so God, obviously, we win. God sends the fire down on Elijah's.
I don't think saying we win. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jezebel's prophets of Baal put a sacrifice down, and they do all kinds of stuff. And Elijah taunts them. I love it. Maybe you ought to do it louder because your God may be sleeping, and it's really a nasty little thing. And then here's where I think the kicker is, I've said this before, but I really believe it. It portrays Elijah as pouring water on his sacrifice to make it more difficult, and God sends down fire and accepts Elijah's sacrifice. I think that he poured gasoline, but that, Elijah, I'm only pouring water, guys, pours the liquid on and it bursts into flame. Okay, maybe it wasn't gasoline. Then Elijah has to flee for his life, and he flees down to Sinai. And this is when this most incredible experience happens, when he encounters a storm and an earthquake, and then he encounters the still small voice of God. That's where this comes from. The still kol demama daka, the still small voice of God. Now, how does Elijah end up, folks?
Living forever.
Who said that? Okay, Effie, lives forever. The text actually provides a mode of transportation. God sends a fiery chariot that takes Elijah Shemaima, El HaShemayim, heavenward. And that's the last. So what do we now assume? In Jewish tradition, in the rabbinic literature, this is called the Ascension of Elijah. Elijah is taken, I can say this way, Elijah is taken up into heaven alive. For what purpose?
We can come back.
Yes.
Yes.
Now we're getting the picture of Elijah that Malachi will pick up and put into the Haggadah. The ascension of Elijah, Elijah going directly alive up into heaven in a fiery chariot, sets the stage for Elijah to come back a lot. Where does Elijah come back in Jewish tradition? Where does Elijah come back? Okay, I see Sukasa, a hand, yes?
Well, two things. When he comes back to bring the Messiah, when there's the Messianic age. But may I ask another question? This story of Elijah in a chariot sounds sort of like Muhammad on the horse story.
Forgive me, who came first, Sukasa?
Oh, I know, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
I mean, and did they sort of co-opt this story, do you think?
Sukasa, Muhammad went up on Al-Kabir to heaven and came back. There is the ascension of Jesus. Jesus ascends and comes back. The theme of a religious hero ascending is I don't know enough to say universal theme, but it is a widespread theme. And now, where else does Elijah appear in our families? Where? Effie.
He comes every Pesach to open the door. You give him wine.
Yeah.
Okay, where else does Elijah show up? Donna.
At every bris.
Every Brit Milah. Now,
yes.
We are members of Wilshire Boulevard Temple. Here is a big reveal. It connects with Jim Ruxin and his world of theater and movies. Jim? Oh, I'm just curious as to where you were. Okay, now, when we go back into the main sanctuary of Wilshire Boulevard in Koreatown, there is a unique, one-of-a-kind image on one of those images that go around the dome. Sukasa, you know what I'm talking about?
I think so, yeah. With the
One of
halo.
the images is of a Seder. What is unusual about that image, and I want you to know it is now currently the subject of academic research. The Seder has an empty chair. That's unusual. That's very unusual. And scholars are looking at that painted image and wondering whether that image of the empty chair at the Seder is unique. Do we have an empty chair for Elijah? We have a chair for Elijah at the bris, but this isn't a bris. This is Seder, and there's an empty chair. And there's a lot of conversation as to how the Hollywood people who designed and painted those images came up with an empty chair for Seder. We know we invite Elijah. We have the wine, open the door. But in the dome of Wilshire Boulevard Temple is a unique expression of leaving an empty chair for Elijah. Tamara, do you have any connections, any thoughts on that? I was shocked. For me, it was a one-off. I had never heard or thought about an empty chair for Elijah. No. And
Rabbi, may I say something? I was singing.
Wait 1 second. Tamara?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I grew up knowing that there was always an empty chair at the Seder, but I never, and nowadays it had become, it is for whoever needs a chair, but it's symbolically, and whoever is missing, but there was always an empty chair and an empty plate, the whole thing. The same.
So we have, folks, a practical suggestion for your Siddharim. Leave an empty chair. Is it an empty chair? And you can talk about it during the Seder. Is it an empty chair for Elijah? Well, in some circles, yes. Is it an empty chair for those who are missing? Yes, it can be that. But it's a nice addition. Now, Lady Jones, Lady Donna.
I was just going to say Dusty Springfield song, a house is not home when there's no one sitting there. A chair, just chair. I was just singing that yesterday. No one's there sitting in the chair. And it makes me think of that.
Absolutely. That is good. That is very, very good. But now, as we run with 3 minutes left, there is more Elijah. Are you aware that gathering in all the rabbinic literature, the person who has the most contact with God is Moses? Okay? We got that, right? Moses chats with God rather frequently. Who's number 2 in rabbinic literature? Elijah. Elijah speaks with God in rabbinic literature the second most time. You have to understand, from the rabbi's perspective, that puts Elijah way up there. Elijah isn't just the guy who makes certain that the Moel, the circumciser, does a good job. Elijah hangs out with God and talks with God. So therefore, now we're moving into another tradition of Elijah. Elijah periodically appears to sustain, support, and answer the problems that people have. Down through Jewish history, especially in, novels and, whatever things people write, Elijah shows up. And I'm going to tell you another place where Elijah shows up, and not just to help people through their problems. Elijah is always around to help people through their problems. In the Talmud, you're going to have to follow this. Effie, do you want to offer something before I run to this?
I just want to know, is Elijah the only person in the Torah that never died?
No. There is one other, apparently, who dies in Genesis. What's his face? I'm blocking on the name. Tamara.
Enos?
Enoch. Enoch. Thank you. It froze, but yes, the Enoch apparently doesn't die in the book of Genesis. But that's all I know. Just those two. Now, in the Talmud, you're going to have to bear with me on this. I get excited about weird things, okay? In the Talmud, when they're arguing things and they can't get a conclusion. Donna, you're nodding yes. Do you know what we're talking about here? Please share it.
I'm not sure I'm going to remember this exactly right, but when the rabbis can't agree to something, they put an acronym, Teku, which basically says, well, we don't know, but when Elijah comes, he'll resolve it.
Okay, here it goes. They write, now we're going to give a little bit of a, but Donna, that's great. That's great. They say at the end of this argument, one guy says this, one guy says this, and they bring in quotes and bring in other quotes. Nothing works. It stops. So they write in Aramaic, Tekum. Tekum. The matter must stand. Okay? However, that's not good enough for the rabbis. They look at Teku and they say, wait a second, that's an acronym. Tishbi Yetaretz Kushiot Uvayot. The Tishba'ite will come and resolve all unanswered questions. Is that what the rabbis meant in the Talmud when they said Tekum? No. Is that how the rabbis then come to read what is written there? Yes. So even today, and if you're dealing with an educated group of folks and they say, Teku, we just, like raise labor union stuff, it can't fix it. Teku. And now it's understood to be that won't be resolved until Elijah comes and fixes it. So that's a case in which really creative imagination falls again to seeing in Elijah the source of all issues. I just want to mention Elijah shows up in Havdalah, right? Elijah shows up in the Havdalah service. Elijah shows up at the end of the Seder. That when Risa and I were in India, Elijah is the most frequently pictured individual in synagogues. Elijah is everywhere. Elijah, for all practical purposes, is the patron saint of the Jews of India. Fascinating. And to answer the initial question, Elijah is supposed to announce the coming of the Messianic age. But folks, read what it says here. The great and terrible day of God, smiting the land with destruction. Folks, don't yearn for the coming of the Messiah, because the Messiah will come with war and destruction and bloodshed. And only then, at the end of it all, will the true Messiah come to bring an age of peace. The rabbis divide up between the Messiah, son of Joseph, and the Messiah, son of David. the Messiah, son of Joseph, great battles. The Messiah, son of David, will bring peace. So if you're hanging around waiting for the Messiah, don't be so anxious, because it's going to be messy. Thank you for today. Wow. Does anyone have a comment to make before we move to Kaddish?
Wow.
Okay, I accept wow. Wow is good.
We want the Mashiach now.
Okay, Mashiach now, that's Chabad.
We
Mona.
want peace now.
I was just going to mention that there's a beautiful scene at the end of the movie, Don't Look Up, that really crystallizes the parents and the children treating each other with love. And of course, in the context of that movie, it is literally before the end of the world. And it's just at that moment that they realize that in their words, they have everything. And it makes me wonder if the author was familiar with this verse.
Thank you.
All these apocalyptic stories form a general literature in which a lot of people participate, not just Jewish. We set the stage, but apocalyptic literature is pretty messy and pretty awful. Though in the movie, Don't Look Up, I loved the scene, that strange beast and the president's head. I loved that scene, but I won't talk further about it. I am going to move now with you, and thank you for today, and Aziz and Pesach, a sweet and beautiful Passover, and have an empty chair. And we covered a lot today, but I am going to be adding to the list of the Yortzeit names that I have been given from Wilshire. I am going to be adding the names of 3 young men who were killed in Tel Aviv in that terrorist attack this week. Okay, so I am mentioning the names who passed away during the past month: Ted Bird, Anna Chinsky, Hillary Turtletop Costin, Mike Culver, Vu Pham Huang, Regina Marco, Florence Kay, Mark Kessler, Sid Kolpas, Coco Konar, Sylvia Morrison, J.C. Nadell, Eunice Nazarian, Jeremy Orlando, Nehemiah Persoff, Blossom Smith, Donald Van. I don't like to do this, but Nehemiah Persoff, one of the great, great actors, theater people in Hollywood,
He must have been like
passed away, I think, at 103 this week. I add as well those killed in the terrorist assault on Dizengoff Street in Tel Aviv: Eitan Magini, Tomer Marad, Barak Lufan. It continues. Somehow it continues. Now the Yortzeits that have occurred during the past week: Nate Adlin, Winifred Anderson, Moses Armel, Alvin Astor, Roberta Barr, Lori Baumwall, Cindy Bender, Evan Bennett, Jack Berman, Joseph Barrow, Reba Block, Leslie Bluestone, Ronald Blumkin, Robert Cohn, Ben Cohn, Sam Cooper, Elliot Dissner, Victor Eport, Mark Epstein, George Epstein, Musa Farhadi, Beatrice Ferris, Max Fields, W. Ben Finkel, Dave Fox, Ivan Freistadt, Etu Fulop, Louis Gerald, Paul Goldberg, Sophia Gray Goldman, Theodore Gordon, Mark Greenstein, Teresa Grossblatt, Eleanor Hallam, Rose Hamburger, Tibor Human, Betty Hollander, Mitchell Jarko, Ethel Kahn, John King, Sylvia Klausner, Sandra Kabata, Robert Canove, Dora Kreshik, Richard Colwyn, Morris Lee Kurtz, Lynette Kurtzman, Bob Kuit, Louis Lackman, Wendy Landis, Barbara Landown, Morris Levine, Emmanuel Lewis, Charles Lieber, Barbara Lipman, Hans Lowe, Lester Majofis, Alice Rose Malin, Thelma Marshall, Marcus Marin, Belle Miller, Leonard Miller, Eleanor Mindell, Nathan Nordell, Rosalind Ostrovsky, Ernest Phillips, Grace Pollock, Arno Prinz, Alchana Pushin, Albert Rice, Myron Rosenbach, Arnold Rosenthal, Max Sanders, Reva Sandler, Ethel Schatz, Bernard Schiff, Linda Schneid, Simon Schwartz, Iona Siegel, Christina Siegel, Linda Silverman, Odell Silverstein, Harry Silverstein, Leo Simons, Katie Skluth, Mark Slangerup, Selma Sobel, Edmund Somech, Bella Steyer, Marilyn Stein, Stephen Sturman, Justin Herbert Strawgate, Semyon Venstock, Aaliyah Vollner, Norma Wachman, Philip Wexler, William Weil, Doris Weiner, Evelyn Weissman, David Wolf, Julius Zellman. If there are other names to be mentioned, I would ask that you speak their names aloud now or mention them in your hearts. I apologize for mispronunciations. We add to these names the names of those who died in defense of the United States, who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died as a result of acts of terror, including so many civilians in the Ukraine, and those for whom there is no one to say Kaddish. We join together now in Kaddish. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma, Yikra, Yute, Bi'amlich Malchut, B'chaye Chon V'omet, V'chaye D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, V'vizman Karim, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shnei Rabbah V'barach, Li'olam Ulamei Almayim, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam Naseh, V'yitadar, V'yitalev, V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudah, Brichu, Le'ela Min Kol Birachata V'shivata, Tushbachata V'nechata, Da'amiran Bi'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Mishmaya, B'chayim, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. Amen. Oseh Shalom Yibrabav. Uyaseh Shalom. Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. V'al Kol B'nei Adam. V'nomar. Amen. God who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families and nations of earth, and let us say, Amen.
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 We have preparation for Pesach. I wish each and every one of you a sweet and beautiful Pesach and Seder, and we will be together next Saturday morning, maybe with a little service at the end. There'll be an announcement about that if we can do it. Sending you love. Have a glorious Pesach. And Carrie, this is going to be a great and wonderful week for you. And I have to tell you, I'm just privileged.
You're going to do great.
That I could be there with you.
Mazel tov.
I wish I
Mazel
was
tov.
in Hawaii with you, but that's
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shalom, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Roy
Bye.
Logan, yes. Barbara, bye. Bye. This is such a good group of people. Okay. Bye bye.